afternoon, everyone. Congratulations on making it to the last slot of the day. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming. My name's Niel, and I'm a principal engineer at Valor. I've been with the company since the very early days, right? When the founders started in 2018, I joined them within about 6 months after that and started working with them on this journey. And as our keynote speaker mentioned this morning, building stuff is messy. Building software is messy. And I want to tell you a little bit about our journey and about the road we've been on, scaling from that initial team where I was the 5th person to join, and for a long time we were small, up to where we are today with a staff complement of about 80 people. So as you grow, you hit multiple different challenges, and the bottlenecks keep shifting. And I'm hoping that in this story that I'm going to share, you'll also find your own journey, right? You'll be able to maybe take a few lessons from this that will help you when you're building a startup or when you are starting something new in the company that you work in. So what I want to do is, talk about some of the potholes we hit, some of the speed bumps, the traffic jams we got into, the accidents we got into, and there were more than a few of those. And hopefully try to give you something that you'll recognize in your own process, and try to avoid the traffic where we got stuck. So when Valor started in 2018, these were the 4 founders at the time, and I'm the one taking the picture. That's why I'm not in it, and I'm also not a founder. So that's another story for another day. But in 2018, we got going, and we said there's an opportunity to create a more inclusive financial system, and we believe that cryptocurrencies have have a big role to play in that. And at the time in South Africa, there was really only one player in the market, and we saw an opportunity to provide an alternative to offer lower fees and a bigger selection of currencies for people to trade. So we saw an opportunity, and we got started. Where we are today is we are the largest trading platform in South Africa. If you look in Rand volume traded, we host about 19 different currencies, and then also offer access to a whole long list of others. So quite a big growth. We currently host about 60%, obviously that changes on a daily basis, but about 60% of the trading volume in South Africa. So it's been one hell of a ride, and I want to just take you on that journey a little bit. So just for fun, I went back and I looked at the first commit in this journey, 13th of February 2018, and some things never change. Commit message of first commit, and what this commit was is a prototype of an order book, right? So it's the heart of what an exchange is. And what was really cool to see in this commit is that there was already emphasis on performance. And although I think if I look at the performance tests that were part of this commit, we've come a long way. I'll just say that. But it was really cool to see that we already started with a goal of being a high performance and a large-scale exchange. So there were about 711 lines of code in that first commit, and almost none of it survives. The only lines that I could find that still survives from that commit is about 2 or 3 lines in our build file, and they're all empty. So none of them survived. My own first commit was done about 8 months later, and much smaller. I changed the git ignore file, and that one, there's still 5 lines around. But it's probably only because that particular git ignore is in a part of the code base that no one ever touches. So I feel like at least there's something still there. Anyway, so at this point, things are great. We are all working hard. We have no customers. We have no production issues. everything is smooth, right? There are no delays. We are just coding, right? So it's amazing, but obviously you can't stay there, and everyone was working hard, including Fazam, our CEO, who I once caught with his feet on the table, and I'll let you know it wasn't the last time I saw him like this. But in all seriousness, he was actually really hard at work, getting a lot of the paperwork in place, getting funding sorted out, contacting our first market makers, and also handling our social media. Crucially, he was ordering lunch, and that made a big difference. So, yeah, everyone was doing their part. I just want to maybe make a quick detour here on the concept of a market maker. Right? When you're dealing with a crypto exchange or any exchange, you need buyers and sellers, right? There needs to be someone on both sides of the trade. And a market maker is an individual that's placing orders on your order book that are not being matched immediately, so that someone else can come and say, I want to buy, there's an order on the other side, and I can trade immediately, right? And the important thing that I want to highlight about that is that when you're creating a new business, it's important to get the business fundamentals right from the beginning. And I think this was what got us off the ground. Later, when we first launched full trading on Valor, there were enough market makers to get us going, and we had a good first day of trading. And after that, we got that was our bootstrapping, and we managed to get off the ground. So, yeah, get your fundamentals in place. So then around this time, our next team member joined, and now our little office was too small. We couldn't actually all sit down unless we closed the door. So this is when we first moved into remote work, and a little bit earlier than most of us, but I think that was a good choice, and it worked out well, and it helped us to keep going, because I was already sharing a desk with the CTO, and yeah, let's just say it wasn't always friendly. Yeah, so from there, another thing that worked really well at this point in our journey was actually working with contractors. We're a small team, we couldn't do everything ourselves, and we relied on a lot of contractors to build our front end. This is even before we built a mobile app, and that also worked quite well. It's it's an isolated kind of problem. Or isolated part of the system. It's something that you can entrust to a stranger. And the upshot of that is that Buddy, who's our chief product officer, learned a lot of Russian in the process. So that was also great. But we launched signups on the 6th of December 2018. There was our countdown timer to 0. And what was another, I think, very good piece of advice that we got from one of our investors was, he said to us, please start incrementally, roll out incrementally, don't do any big bang releases. And that was great advice, because it enabled us to sort out those initial teething issues, and those little things that are not a big deal if you only go live with signups and with identity verification, but that would be a big deal if at the same time you're trying to take deposits and you're trying to trade and you're trying to handle withdrawals, and now you've got a customer who can't log in. So a staggered rollout really helped us a lot to just deal with one thing at a time, and then you can deal with weird things like SMS delivery was one of the things that we struggled with in the beginning. And we had a UX issue where if customers resent the email, right, so we had a click here to resend, and then because of the sorting in their inbox, they sometimes got confused and clicked on an expired link. Silly things, but it's great when you're only calling friends and family and saying, hey mom, can you please sign up? This is a true story. I phoned my mom, I think she was one of our first customers, said, Mom, can you please sign up and just let me know what breaks? And when you only have a few people, you can sort these things out without it impacting too many customers. So I would definitely recommend that. Within exactly a year after Theo's first commit, we took our first deposit on the 13th of Feb 2019. And this was the little flyer we handed out at Blockchain Africa that year to say, come and trade. So now we were live, we were taking deposits, and we offered limited trading. You could deposit Bitcoin or Ethereum and use that to buy other cryptos. We didn't yet have our own order book, but we could take deposits and also handle withdrawals. So slowly but surely moving up in that process of rolling out the full features. And then full trading started on this in June 2019. So a few months later, we had full trading. And the first trade was a Bitcoin buy for 129,000 Rand. And I wish I could go back and buy more at that price. So up to this point, things are going great. There's still a very small team. But now things are growing. We're starting to add a lot more code, and one of the first potholes we hit was demonstrated, as is usual with XP, by our unit tests. Right? So we started off and we coded a lot with Kotlin's functional paradigm, and what we were doing is you have a DI container that's a global object that you can then access from all over, and you've got these top-level functions that then do your dependency injection like that. And where the test started failing was because now we had shared state, because Kotlin's singletons are really JVM statics under the hood. So when your tests run, you've got the same JVM running all the tests, and you've got the same DI container across all of those. And if you've registered a mock, as you can see in this little example, if you've registered a mock for account commands, that same mock is still registered in your DI container the next time a test runs and tries to access it. So this is just a small example, but we started encountering these technical challenges as the code base grows, and I think it's natural and you learn from it, and we pivoted and we started using a lot more object orientation, and that's worked quite well for us. Then, first massive accident that we got into. So about a week before we launched full trading, we were doing the deployment to roll out our matching engine, right? So our full order book trading engine. And as we scaled down our containers to do this deploy, our cloud provider just disappeared. Like they had a massive outage. They didn't fully disappear. The control plane disappeared, and workloads that were still up, but all the controls, we couldn't change the images, we couldn't scale them back up, we couldn't run database migrations, nothing. And this started at about, I think just after midnight on a Sunday, and one of the longest nights of my life as we struggled to try and get this thing back online and try to get Valor back up and running, right? And you're worried about your reputation, and hours are ticking by, and you watch later. I watch the sunrise, and I'm thinking, people are going to start trying to use this again. In the end, we had to wait for the cloud provider to recover, and then we could finish our rollout, and we scaled up, and everything was fine again. And it's one of those things you can't completely mitigate, right? Like incidents like this happen, and you can't completely avoid it. But there are a few things that you could do differently, and you have to set your architecture up and your deployment processes up in a way that's more resilient. For example, you could deploy across multiple regions, and you could implement something like blue-green deploys, where you keep the old containers running while you bring up the new containers. And then obviously if you can't bring up the new ones, well, at least the old ones are still there. Or if you bring up the old ones and it doesn't work well, roll back. Feature flags, all those kinds of practices can also be really helpful. So it takes time to invest that in those kinds of things. I wish we had done it sooner. And the sooner you do that, it'll be, the better it'll be for you to try and avoid these kinds of issues. Also, you'll start avoiding 3 a.m. deploys, right? I've done too many of those in my life, so these days a lot fewer, a lot farther apart. You'll improve your cadence, all right? You'll be able to roll out new features more frequently and overall lead to a better customer experience. So the sooner you can do that, the better. Then another accident, and I have to tell you this story because it's just too good not to. Now, a little while after we went live and things were going great, we thought, great, we've been working at this for more than a year, it's time for a team build. So we went on the now infamous horse riding safari, and as we are going along, we get a notification, we realize our system is down. And we're in the middle of the veld, and what you're seeing there is Theo, our CTO, with his laptop out, making a live code change, building and deploying in the middle of nowhere. And since those days, we have a mortal fear of anything that resembles a team build or getting out of the office. The last time we had something like that, we took along a massive antenna to make sure that we'll always have reception. So anyway, some things stick in your memory. But what happened there is we had a big decimal, and it's because of trailing zeros, it couldn't fit in a message buffer. And when it couldn't fit in that buffer, threw an exception, and everything halted, and our kind of exception handling kicked in and said, we don't know what's going on, stop. Right? We're dealing with people's money, so stop. And when I reflected on that a bit, I think maybe we could have found that bug beforehand if we invested a lot in automated load tests, a lot of volume and very prod-like data. Then I think we could have maybe found it. But this is an example of where you have to deal with those trade-offs. You're a startup. Survival is not guaranteed, and you need to get things shipped yesterday. So you have to make those trade-offs, and in this case, it bit us. And we found the bug in production. Unfortunately, we didn't find it earlier. But I think it was still the right choice. In the end, we were able to recover quickly, even though it happened like this. And we were able to keep moving. And I think that is one of the most important things, is on this journey, sometimes you just have to keep going. So, yeah, that was an accident. Then we started getting into some traffic jams. So this is our board at the time, all covered in stickies. And what I loved about this is stickies naturally fall off the wall. If it doesn't get done, then eventually it will drop. And then there's no more arguing about, is it important or not? Clearly, it's not important. And that's a feature that they still have to build into Asana. Stickies just dropping off my Asana board because there are too many things that just hang around. But yeah, so as our customer base started growing, we got into this situation where you start getting more and more support queries. And because you're a small team and everyone does everything, you have to answer those support queries. You have to investigate, someone didn't get his funds and now, that deposit is stuck somewhere. You have to go dig it up. You have to figure out what happened. And the trade-off that you have to deal with is that either you can fix this issue that just happened and stop everything else that you're doing and not ship any new features for a week or two or however long it takes you, or you can deal with the fallout when it happens. If it happens infrequently enough and the impact is low enough, then you can defer it. Obviously, if the frequency increases or the impact increases, once again, we're dealing with people's money, so we have to be very sensitive about these things. But as those things increase, there's a point where you have to say, okay, put everything else on ice, we have to deal with it. But if you can keep moving and you can keep rolling out new features and more important improvements, and again, this is all about priority, right? It's prioritizing. Then sometimes you have to do that. Another speed bump that we encountered was a growing code base. Right? So as your code base grows, unit tests are taking longer to run the full suite, and compile times increase, and you've just got a general increase in complexity. And again, it's one of those things that you have to deal with, but choosing when to deal with it is also quite hard, because there's never a perfect time to say, all right, now I'm going to spend a day and just work on getting things faster, getting my compile times down, getting my test suites faster. But at some point you have to pay that debt, especially as you are adding new team members. It's kind of a multiplying effect, right? So now everyone is waiting longer for those tests to run, and everyone is contributing more tests, so it's getting worse over time. But at some point you have to pay your technical debt, and we took an approach, a few different things that we did. First, very simply, what tuning can you do on your build process, right? Can you use parallelism? Is there some kind of caching that you can do? Just what does your build tool offer? Make use of that. Other one was just to go and find the slowest tests that have the biggest impact and fix those. And you can usually get quite a big improvement with a fairly small investment of time. So go just deal with the worst offenders. And then we got to a point where we started to do the hard work of, now we have to separate the code into modules, right? So that you don't build modules that are unchanged, right? If I'm changing code module A and module B didn't change, don't recompile B. That's quite hard work, I just want to warn you. Untangling, if you have all your code in one module, untangling it and figuring out how to separate it, that takes a bit of time, but definitely worth it. And then the fourth approach we took was even a slightly bigger scale of the same thing, and we separated different domains into separate repos and into separate microservices. Similar kind of challenges that you have when you are splitting code into modules within the same code base. You have to untangle things. What we've done, and it's worked quite well, is to start by just copying everything and then kind of weeding out the things that you don't need anymore. So that's how we dealt with the challenges of the growing code base, and it's one of those that we're still dealing with, and it's an ongoing thing that you constantly have to work to improve and constantly have to work to make sure that this doesn't slow you down more than, especially as you're adding more team members, that it's not going to slow you down more than what you speed up by adding those team members. Which brings me to one of the roadblocks we had to also get past, is as our team grew, we wanted to get faster, not slower. But I think that old truism of adding more people to a project that's already late makes it later. It still applies. So initially we grew very slowly. For a long time there were fewer than 5 of us on the back end side of things. So you can deal with things and it's fine. But as you add more and more team members, we quickly hit that threshold where just adding another team member to the back end team no longer worked, and we had to find a new way of working. The first symptom that we saw was that there was no focus, right? So now we've got quite a few more people, and the way we worked is, okay, someone finishes a task, they look for the next most important thing to do, and say, okay, over there, go for it. And so you go and you work on that. Next team member finishes a task, and they look for the next most important thing, and it's something here. And so everyone kept going from place to place, and there was no clear focus for the team, because the team itself was working on multiple things, and the individuals in the team were working across domains, and they weren't getting that deep domain knowledge that comes from working on the same domain over time. And I think that really became a challenge, is dealing with that, because now you've got a few people like myself who've been there since the beginning, right? And we've seen it all. We know the whole system. No one else knows the whole system, so we get involved in everything. We're in the planning, we're in the designs, we're in the reviews, when someone needs help or doesn't understand something, and my life started to suck because I was being pulled in 1,000 directions, and everyone was waiting for me and a few others who could play the same role. So that was a very sticky situation to be in. And if you start to see the same thing, please back out. Right? There was a second symptom that we saw, and that was a high level of coordination. Right? So now, because we don't have focus, we're working on different things. So I'd merge my branch into the main line. We test it. We're ready to go live. Someone else wants to now merge something. I say, whoa, please stop, because I want to release this tonight, so don't merge your code in, because then your code's going to go out with my code, and we can't have that. So there was a high level of coordination. And also with our other teams, there was a bit of a mismatch, right? So now we've got a front-end team, and they're working on their own backlog, and sometimes we had a lot of inventory. So we released something on the back end, but the front end hasn't yet started on even working on that. So these were some of the symptoms of the way we had built our team, of just adding more developers. So the way we've dealt with that, to try and get out of this roadblock, is to create stream-aligned teams. Right? So it's a concept from team topologies, of creating teams that focus on specific value streams. And what that's given us is we're able to create a team that has focus, right? The whole team with a mix of skills, right? The front-end engineer, a tester, maybe an analyst, a back-end engineer, and everyone working on a single goal. Focus on one area, one domain, developing deep skills in that domain, and creating more and more autonomy. Right? As the team learns their domain and gets to know the domain, they need less input from outside, and they're able to make their own decisions, and they manage to speed up, right? And they can keep on shipping features with less and less intervention from outside. So we start removing those roadblocks. And as the coordination, to reduce the coordination, it helps that the team is self-contained, but you also have to make some changes to your architecture and to your code base. So there are some practical, technical things that you're going to have to do to make the team completely autonomous. And that's an ongoing journey for us, but one that I'm very happy that we started, that we have teams that are less and less reliant on a few key individuals and able to deliver value on their own. Then just want to mention something about knowledge sharing, right? One of the main reasons why you've got this choke point of one or two people that's required for everything is because knowledge needs to be shared around so that everyone knows how to do what they need to do. And what's worked really well for us is mob programming, pair programming, and code reviews. Great ways to just share knowledge. In a mob, you can ask questions about the context in which you are working. Why is this thing the way it is? Or, as the one that maybe has a bit more context, say, okay, but there's this whole other part of the system that you don't even have in view right now, but that you have to keep in mind when you're building this. So you can share that wider context. Of course, you can also share skills and practical things like writing better tests, and this is how our test environment works here, and this is how to set up a temporary environment for a new feature, and all those kinds of very practical skills that you can share. So knowledge sharing excuse me, is a crucial part of getting everyone to work effectively and to succeed at their own jobs, right? So that we can all move forward together. So I think this was my last slide, And this is how, just a little bit of our journey, some of the accidents and the potholes and the speed bumps that we've overcome. There's a lot more to be done. There's definitely more optimizations that we need in order to reach our goals. Right now, Valor is still mostly trading in South Africa. We're working hard to go international, to add new trading features and new ways for customers to use our platform. So there's a lot to be done, and a lot of new people to add to the team and to bring on up to speed. But I'm very excited about the journey. So that's our story. Can we? So any questions? We've got a mic. I see a few hands already.
Hi. Thanks a lot for the talk. I was just wondering if you could say a little more about the decision to split the teams according to those value streams and how that looks in practice, like for me.
Be able to get a better idea. Now it's working. For me to be able to get a better idea of like what that looks like in practice, like how you could implement that in a different context, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. So without going into the theory of team topologies, the idea is that you create a team that have all the skills to deliver a certain kind of value, right? So one example would be, as an exchange, we need to integrate with traditional finance, right? We need to integrate with banks. So we created a team that focuses on that, and there's a back-end engineer, a front-end engineer, and a tester in that team, along with a few other like more product-focused people. And between them, they have all the skills they need to deliver the value, which is integrating into a traditional financial system or like a bank or payments environment. So we've got a mix of skills that together have everything they need to succeed. So it's about autonomy and to reduce reliance on people outside of the team. Right? In a different context, we have a team that's more heavy on the back-end engineering side with only one front-end engineer because they are working on our trading engine. So it's a lot more focused on the matching and the optimization of that system, while the front-end component is a lot smaller. And they also have a tester working with them and a product owner and someone who's a subject matter expert. So putting together the skills that enable them to deliver a stream of work.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, so I like the idea of untangling your the modules, like building those that only change. Although I'm quite not happy that you just skimmed past it. I think it's important, something to try. My question is, do you guys have any connection to SBF or CZ?
No, we don't. But those are not the kind of models I was referring to. Right, thank you.
Hey, quick question on scaling your team. When you guys started adding new engineers to the team, how did you guys go about that at scale and make sure that everyone can deliver as soon as possible, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so obviously, and I think everyone here would share this experience, hiring is hard and finding the right people is hard, but I think we've been able to attract some really talented individuals, and that helps. When you've got someone who already is highly motivated and skilled, we've got a small team, right? So we don't have room for anyone to come in and just take a back seat. So everyone gets stuck in. But then, you need to make sure that you're providing the context and you're providing the support they need. And what really helps is that you can pair a new developer with a more experienced one. Say, okay, you guys are working together, and the more experienced person can show you the ropes, and help you get up to speed through pairing and code reviews and just general, this is how it's done around here type of thing. So I think kind of that approach of twinning up people helps a lot. I see a question over there. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you. Following up on the first question, so now when you're in the position where you're the central choke point and like everything has to go through you, now you've created these streams. Now, what happens to your position? Do you pick one of the streams or become like the architect and you sort of oversee the area, or how did you adapt to that?
Yeah, so I once heard this really cute story about a mother who had 12 sons, and they were all very successful in their own right, and someone asked her, so which of your sons do you love the most? And she said, the one who needs it most at the time. And that's what I'm trying to do with my different teams, is I'm trying to see who needs my support most right now, and then I focus my attention there and try and ramp up their autonomy up to a point where they don't really need me as much. And I say, okay, now you guys can carry on, and I look around and say, where's the next person? But yeah, my role is very fluid and changes all the time, and sometimes I wonder if that elusive sabbatical that I've been dreaming of will ever become a reality. Thanks for the question. Yeah.
Over here. Given your current model of how you're structured, how much bigger do you think you can stretch the team? How far can you take this model, do you think, gut feel?
Yeah, I think we can add a few more individuals to the teams that we already have, and then we can definitely add a few more teams, especially as the teams that we all have right now become more autonomous and need less guidance from outside. I think there'll be room to create new teams and then do the same kind of thing. So I think this model should take us at least down the road a few more paces.
So from my side, we've been for the last 2-3 years working with mob programming. So we're now starting to scale up, and we're finding that we can't scale with more developers in the team. So at what level have you guys found that would be the sort of the average number of developers to testers to all of those within a single mob?
Sure. So I think I experience the mobs have, sometimes it's just pairs, it's as small as 2, and then if I join, there's a third. Some of our mobs, I think the biggest we've had is, say, 4 developers plus a tester and maybe someone else. But at that point, you've got a lot of spectators, or the risk is to sit back and not really get in. But it also depends on the participants to really engage. And what helped us a lot is a while ago we just got an office, got a space, rented that out for a week, and got everyone around the table and got some momentum in the mob. Because I think it's a little bit more tricky if people are all remote. Then it relies even more on the individuals to really engage and not just sit back.
Okay.
Thank you. See, there's another question here.
Hi. Were there any interesting business ramifications that came out of the recent FTX exchange collapsing? And did that change or prime your thinking for the future of exchanges in the international context and going forward?
Sure. Yeah, that was a big shock, right? And I think what that does is it galvanizes you to say, you're never too big to fail. You're never out of the woods, and that what's honest business is good business. So making sure that we really keep our noses clean. We really value an ethical approach to business, and I think that has just been emphasized by that whole collapse. Thanks. Any other questions? There's one more here.
Thanks so much. Quick one. Are you still outsourcing to Russia or Ukraine? Was that successful for you? It's a common thorn in people or in company sides from my experience.
Yeah, so over time we've been able to bring people on permanently and attract people to join the team in a permanent capacity. But some of them are now in very different parts of the world. But if you keep them in the same time zone, then it doesn't make that much of a difference. If everyone is already working from different cities in South Africa, then adding another country to that doesn't make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. So sorry, I was asking within the context of if someone is with your company, they have a certain level of personal investment, they want to see you guys succeed, whereas as a consultancy, sometimes they just want to get the job done.
Yeah.
So was that a thing for you guys, or is it not something you experienced?
Yeah, I think a contractor does their job, and then that's over. Some of our contractors wanted to join us later, and we had discussions about that with them where it made sense. But yeah, at the end of the day, you want people to be invested, and you can't have a temporary person permanently. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone. I think our time is up. Thanks so much for coming.